So it's the last one of the day. We're going to make it fun. I promise. I promise. Hi. Oh, thanks. Thanks. Hold on. We're posing for pictures. Hi. I'm Lana LoRusso. We're really excited for this panel today. I'm going to introduce my friends over here in 1 second. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I the VP of Ad Sales over at Atmosphere TV. For anyone who wants to know what that is, if you don't know what it is, we are the largest streaming platform that runs outside of the living room. So what the hell does that mean? It means we're in over 65,000 locations across the country. We are, I'm just laughing, these guys are taking selfies up here. We're in over 65,000 locations across the country. We're in bars, restaurants, salons, spas, and we reach over 150 million people. The venues can choose the channels that they want. We have over 30 content channels, and we like to say that we make it fun to watch TV outside of your home when you're out and about. So speaking of fun, I'm really excited for this panel right now, and you're going to see why in a little bit. I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. But over to my left, I just want to introduce who's on the panel. We have Mura, who is the SVP and General Manager of Edgewell's Skin, Sun, and Femcare brands. Fun, we got a rowdy group here. And we have Erica Roberts, who is the Chief Creative Officer at BBH USA. And she also is Ad Age's Chief Creative Officer of the Year. And you are going to see why after today. So I'm so excited about this panel because it is all about the Hawaiian Tropic campaign, Reinvigorating Hawaiian Tropic. And you're going to be like, well, why is that a big deal? Well, for me, it's a huge deal because I'm Italian, I'm from Long Island, and I love to tan, okay? So, right, you're clapping. And I used to call it laying out, right? But my kids are freshmen in college, and they call it tanning. So it's a huge deal. Back then, I'd be like, where's my tanning oil? But now, people say, where's my sunscreen? So it's a little bit of like a different take on it. So I'm going to show this campaign right now, and you're going to see why this is going to be a super fun panel. Cue the campaign.
Welcome to the Tana Sutra. Like Kama Sutra. But this one is for getting the perfect glow with Hawaiian Tropic.
Let's dive in! For optimal results, you've got to switch it up. Fun fact, I also bloom in the sun.
Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me, baby. Don't leave me, baby. Don't leave me, baby.
Hello, sun. Where are you going? Golden hour is literally my favorite lighting.
Awesome, right? How well do you think that ad did? Very well. We're going to talk about it now. So I'm going to turn it both to Vera and Erica. And my first question is, why was now the right moment to reinvigorate the Hawaiian Tropic?
Yeah, thank you, Lana. Does that work? Yeah. Yeah, perfect moment. It's funny, I think the journey began even before I was officially an Edgewell employee. I took my job at the end of February, really. Couple of things that happened. The first thing I have to say was sort of like where we're at in our journey as a company overall at Edgewell. We're on a transformation journey. We're on a mission to sort of look at how we talk about our brands, look at how we invest behind our brands, and restoring healthy support and bring back love to our brands. So as part of this transformation journey, we're committed as a company to make our brands live in culture again, get them not only liked, because we've been around, we have iconic brands. Hawaiian Tropic has been around for 50 years, but make them loved. by consumers and bring them back in a very meaningful way into our consumers' life. So we got some additional incremental money in March, and we, looking at our portfolio of brands, we decided to invest and have our first ever national campaign, fully funded national campaign on Hawaiian Tropic. We saw Hawaiian Tropic having a little bit of a moment. A couple of products went viral with some of the small-scale influencer programs we did earlier in the year. And tanning was having a resurgence, really. So we decided to go full on and literally invest our media against, as I said, a full funnel campaign on Hawaiian Tropic to get the brand talked about again. And I think from start to finish was a 40 days process. So literally from brief up to delivery on air, because we needed to hit Memorial Day weekend. That's when the sun season starts, right? So we turned to BBH to help us with that.
Go ahead. Yes, 40 days, just so everyone knows that, to make that ad.
Honestly, these are the best assignments for a creative agency when you have very little time to overthink anything. So the urgency actually worked in our favor. It's a bigger task than I think even what it looks like. It's the first ever brand campaign, and it was honestly relaunching the icon. And a lot of times when you do that, right, you go back to the brand fundamentals and you interrogate the audience and you interrogate the category. And there's a lot of sort of foundational strategic thinking. And, our brilliant strategy team kind of did a very quick pass and, in conjunction with Vero's very clear vision of where she wanted to take the brand, what the DNA is of Hawaiian Tropic that she wanted to pull forward into the future, we kind of had a very clear bullseye at which we were running towards. So there's that. And then the part that made it really kind of a special assignment was the ambition was clearly there, right? We were using Hawaiian Tropic to show sort of the power of creativity to the entire organization. And so there was a lot of responsibility to show up big, swing big, and over-deliver for the size of the budget.
Yeah, and to this point, as I was mentioning, part of the transformation journey, we got some incremental money. We chose Hawaiian Tropic, but sort of a little bit of pressure on the team because, as I mentioned, we're committed as a company to restoring healthy support to our brands. But having that work on the first time we're doing it, with the first one, was really, really important.
Right. And, it's such, to your point, it's such an iconic brand. So I used it when I was younger. So you have to balance that, how do you keep true to the brand? And keep it so that people still respect it and understand it. But then how do you transform it so people that are, freshmen in college or in high school want to use this tanning brand and find it cool? So how did you what was the vision, like how to protect the heritage and balance all that?
So going back to the fundamentals of the brand and what makes Hawaiian Tropic special was really important to us, right? So if you look at the brand DNA, the brand roots, like Hawaiian Tropic has always been about hot, sexy women, for lack of better words. There was the Miss Hawaiian Tropic context back in the 70s.
It's worth Googling, by the way.
And rooted also in a product truth that's a very sensorial product based on the scent, the brown bottle is iconic. So sort of like tapping into what really defined Hawaiian Tropic as a brand in the eyes of consumers, but also integrating a lot of the category truth. So looking at the category, sun care category, what was happening in the category at that moment in time, and what was happening in consumers' life, finding an insight that enabled us to sort of like position Hawaiian Tropic in a new, fresh light, rooted in brand truth, human truth, category truth. And I think that's what Erica's team did brilliantly. So if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the category, and I'm sure, we've all seen it, right? It's no longer like, go enjoy your life in the sun and have fun. It's like the sun has been demonized and vilified, and we're all made to be like very scared of the sun. And you think about like, it's no longer sort of, fun in the sun. It's skin care with SPF. It's clinical. It's, dermatology first. And so we wanted to sort of, go from sort of the science and bring back the sexy a little, right? And so we're not in a position to play with sort of the skincare experts, but we can be sun experts, because that is part of the DNA of the brand, and show that like you can be your sexiest, flirtiest, most fun version of yourself in the sun and do it in a really fun and safe way.
Talk a little bit about the process, because you had 40 days from when you first found out you had the incremental money to when
It's like some biblical story.
I know.
We had 40 days.
40 days. But we all know here how hard it is to get a campaign up and running. Even, we're a vendor that takes the ads up on our platform, right? And if somebody said to us, okay, we're going to get the budget approved and the ad's going to be running, even if the ad was already creative and it's going to be up and ready to go in like the next month, we would have been like, yeah, it's no way. So how did you do that? Plus get a very important influencer and pass it through internally. That's always, I have to give a lot of credit for that, for taking risks.
I think it all started with a very clear brief. So when we looked at it, was very clear. We needed to drive cultural relevance. So this was about driving brand awareness and relevance and reappraisal of Hawaiian Tropic in a way. Drive cultural impact, really, first one. And the second one was drive sales impact. Okay, and so that was the way we approached the brief.
But that was like a non-negotiable. So, yes, it was, there was a core belief in the power of like culture and making the brand culturally relevant. But I think to prove through to the organization, it was like it had to move the numbers. It was a non-negotiable, and it had to move the numbers immediately, which is like, especially from a creative, I'm like, well, we'll do our best.
Right.
No promises. Anyway, that was that. As a little foreshadowing to how we kind of ended up with the influencer we ended up with.
Yeah, I mean Alex Earle. So talk a little bit about that. How did you come to work with her? How did the process go with her? And then just how did you get that again passed through internally?
I guess once we've locked down on the idea, and you should talk about like more what the idea is, but once we locked down on the idea, looking at, we had incremental money, but it's not like we had hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, okay? It was a little bit of a test. We managed to carve out some money. The board was kind enough to like go with us on a pilot, really, in terms of proving out what you can do if you really invest in the brands and how you can grow them. With that in mind, the way very quickly with the creative idea, it became evident that we needed the help of somebody who could be like a spokesperson for the brand or represent the brand. And as we were evaluating who could help us with that, there were really three criteria we were looking at. First of all, concept fit, right? Who can credibly be the sort of like 2025 Miss Hawaiian Tropic and embody that in a very authentic, genuine way. The second was drive cultural impact. And the third one, move product. So that's the lens through which we looked at the influencer, and Alex very quickly rose to the top, right?
Yeah, and just, a little bit about the idea and why Alex was so perfect for it. Like I was saying, we wanted to go from, skin care to sun care and sun expert. And Alex just is such an incredible sun expert and a believable sun expert. Like, she is always sort of golden and beautiful in this, modern day Hawaiian Tropic woman. So the concept itself actually came from an insight that the team found, which actually is not new, and I'm sure not new to you as a sun lover from when you were younger, is that in order to get the perfect glow when you're tanning, you need to switch positions every 15 to 20 minutes, right? So that you evenly tan your full body. And so that notion of changing positions gave way to Tana Sutra, sort of our cheeky take on the Kama Sutra. And Alex has that inherent cheekiness. You know, she is sort of very self-aware of her own sex appeal, but owns it and projects it in a way where she's very sort of self-aware and flirty, but she toes the line. It's something we talked a lot about, sort of our brand of sexiness and what is right for, you know, for Hawaiian Tropic, because, you know, sexiness can be a third rail for a brand. And so we had to be really careful with that. But, you know, Alex brought this sort of levity and a charm that we didn't have to worry about sort of stepping over the line with her. And she was very involved. And again, because she understands her own brand and what feels right to her, she was very involved in how all of the positions even came to life. I remember the first call with the director, and, you know, we were going through, we had 8 different positions, and she was like, no, this is not going to work, because based on these 8 positions, you wouldn't tan your inner thigh. And so, you know, and so she was just like that level of involvement, which was incredible. And then she, you know, insisted on us bringing on a choreographer, right, to help, you know, make the positions even more over the top. And, you know, it was just, it's a dream when you have somebody involved with the brand who is that invested in making the creative right. You just feel the difference.
So you had the idea and then she fit into it, or did the idea start to emerge when you had her?
We had the idea.
Okay.
We had the idea, and she was the perfect fit to represent that. And then she came onto the shoot and completely embraced the idea and built off of it with our own followership in mind. But going back to your question about risk-taking, one of the things outside of having a very clear brief, I think what helped moving fast was, obviously it's easy to move fast when your agency comes up with such a brilliant idea, you know. It enables fast buy-in at all levels of the organization. It wasn't a huge selling job, you know, for me and the team. But also being very clear as to what's in, what's out from a tonal perspective. Back to Erica's point, we spend a lot of time discussing what sexy means, you know, and what is the right word. It's cheeky, it's flirty, it's not slutty, it's not glamorous. It's, you know, like we had a lot of conversation around that.
Yeah. And she's a user of Hawaiian Tropic, correct?
Yes, she loves Hawaiian Tropic, which again is, you know, hugely helpful. I think you could feel like, yes, we came up with the idea, but she made it her own. And I think that's why her audience and her base like embraced it so much.
So let's talk a little bit about how the campaign did, because you can have a great campaign, but at the end of the day, you want to sell Hawaiian Tropic sunscreen. So, and that's all that, you know, it's all about ROI and you know, how things perform. So let's talk a little bit about that, because it's pretty astonishing.
So Hawaiian Tropic had a little bit of a moment this year before we started sort of like boosting it with the campaign. But the campaign absolutely exceeded our expectation, both in terms of virality, so driving awareness, putting Hawaiian Tropic back in the middle of conversation, especially with the newer Gen Z generation, sort of like bringing new consumer groups into the brand. So as an example, household penetration amongst Gen Z consumer increased 1.5% versus last year. That's really big for us. And we are also the fastest growing brands amongst Gen Z consumer for the year. And from a driving sales impact perspective, the brand grew 20% year over year.
That's crazy.
Which
wait, I'm sorry, 20%. That's
Yeah.
like huge.
I can't tell you I've got another objective next year, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Sustaining double-digit growth. And we also grew 7 times faster than the sun care category. So massive, massive results for this campaign. We're extremely proud and happy of the work we did together. Yeah.
Did you have, so she posted it on her TikTok, the ad, which was unbelievable.
And then she continued to sort of post behind the scenes stuff. And again, in terms of, finding the right brand spokesperson and partner, the fact that she was so willing to lean in, and she posted behind the scenes stuff of her. I don't know if you guys noticed, she did that split. And she did all of her own stunts.
Which is, by the way, the split is her idea.
Yes, the split.
It wasn't scripted. She did
that
it
was
on
the real flex. She wanted to show the world how flexible she was. And we didn't stop her. But like that, I think, got over 6 million views just alone. So that was, all her own. That wasn't even part of her contract. So she leaned in a lot and got us even more reach and more eyeballs, which was just incredible. And I think part of it was because we created an environment for her to truly collaborate, make it feel like her own. We created a set where it was all like a female director, a female DP. So she just was
This was an all-female crew, from client to agency to director.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're all sitting here right now, all right?
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that, because there has to be a lot of trust, especially when you're talking about fun and flirty, not slutty, being taken seriously, but making sure that, there's a cool, fun idea that people really attach themselves to. A lot of people know who Alex Earle is, obviously. But I think there comes with a level of trust when you're saying, hey, let's attach her to a brand that's been around for a while. So talk about that partnership a little bit between.
I think in general, she's a pretty brand safe influencer. She had done, I think, 3 Super Bowl spots the year prior. She still continues to do quite a bit of stuff with Carl's Jr. But it's funny because I think a lot of those brands kind of use her as a pretty girl. And I think we used her quite differently, more as her true self as she kind of shows up, and let her flex her, her personality, what's important to her. She's like very much deemed like America's hot best friend. And I think surrounding herself with other women, her friends in the spot itself, making her feel like one of the girls, not at all objectified. We just used her differently. And I think, in sort of this empowering kind of way.
Were you on board, and how did you sell it through to the rest of your team internally?
We made a couple decks.
Yeah, we made a couple decks. Honestly, it was pretty smooth. I have to give credit to the board and our CEO and president. We got the money. They saw the campaign idea, and then they saw who I was spending talent money on, and they were like, "Just go."
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of data too around Alex and how much she moves product.
Yeah. And but even your idea, Tana Sutra, that is something that you have to really lean into and then see it come to life. So
I think part of the trick was it was more than just that spot that we just showed. It was really this full ecosystem that pulled through straight to retail. So that was sort of chunked out into like bite-sized content, but there was a whole design system that's going to live on into year 2 as well. That's really poppy. It's fun. It's fresh. It's very playful. So I think the fact that, Vero as well was able to say like this has a very strong retail component as well, helped the cause.
Okay, so now this was so big, such a huge success. What happens next? How do you
We retire.
keep that coming? Yeah.
And we moved to Miami.
No, year 2 is coming out at some point next year. So I saw the first round of creative last week, and it's going to be really, really great.
That's not too much pressure. It's
Hot,
gonna be really
hot,
great.
hot. No,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, listen, I think last year was the proving ground, and now, like, Vera always is very ambitious, and she says, go bigger, and so we went bigger. So it's going to be very fun.
Is this a case study internally that other brands at Edgewell are looking
It is
to mirror?
absolutely, as I was telling you, it's one. We got the money for a reason. It's to showcase how we intend to transform the business at Edgewell, how we intend to bring our brands back in culture. Hawaiian Tropic was the proof point. Yeah, this year. Obviously, we're going to continue year 2 with Hawaiian Tropic, but we also have an amazing portfolio of brands which all deserve love, and we're going to be doing the same thing starting next year on the rest of our brands.
Okay. And then my final question, and we can open it up to any other questions, would be, does she really look that good in person?
Better.
Even better.
Okay, good. Good to know. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we got one in the back.
We can hear you.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, as I said, we tapped into the resurgence of tanning, but the idea with Hawaiian Tropic, we're a sun care brand, and it's all about protection, right? So how do you get the glow with the right products? And we were very conscious of that as we were shooting the full campaign. The idea is to talk about protection, but in a fun way that reflects consumers' behavior, right? So we're not a derm brand. We're not going to talk about skincare in the same way as La Roche-Posay or some of these, more clinical or skin-driven brands. But we are embracing our heritage and doing it in a way that makes sense for the moment, and bringing sun protection and talking about it in a relevant way.
Erica asked me earlier what, because I love Hawaiian Tropic, that's my brand, and she asked me which one I use, and I told her that I use the lotion, but I really do use the oil. And I didn't want to tell her the truth because I was like, oh my God, the oil is going to be like a stigma. Then I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, this is fine. I use the lotion and I use the oil a lot more than I use the lotion. But now I'm going to be honest about that. But the point is that it is a brand right now that can make you feel like you can use both. And I think that, especially now with like the resurgence of it, it just feels like it's something that a lot of the younger generation is really going to lean into.
I think part of Alex's latent equity too is around skincare, because she is very open about her own sort of skin journey. She suffered from like very severe acne. I mean, she is otherwise perfect. So, while we don't talk about that explicitly, I think her followers do trust her quite a bit for the right kind of skincare.
Great. Any other questions?
Hi. One thing that I was really impressed by is that the message is so single-minded. And most of the time when things go from concept to on air, there's all these other messages that get thrown in there or brought in. And how did you guys do that to keep it so single-minded?
I mean, it's a pretty simple, like the insight around changing positions and just achieving this ultimate glow is what we wanted to pull through. And again, I think part of it too is, we had a pretty finite budget. And so we wanted to make sure that we were creating a very single-minded idea through the line, right? So these positions and sort of just making it fun about getting that glow, as we call it, we just doubled down on that and pulled it through every asset.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I was trying to talk about earlier, which is if you're clear on what your brand is, but more so what it isn't, if you have an understanding of the category where it's headed, so in this case, like, maybe fear mongering a little bit around like skin cancer, etc., and the role you can play and the point of view you can bring that is differentiated, which in the case of Hawaiian Tropic is the brand that unleashes your sexier, funner self in the sun. And then if you're really clear about your objectives, then it's easy to sort of like be true and keep on track, because you always go back to these things, right?
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, one more.
Hi, I'm Lorena. I have a questions pertaining to, your executions was focused on tanning, right? Curious to see what obstacles you came through with diverse audiences, where it's not only that the sun is demonized because of the results and the impact on your health, but also there's psychology and unconscious bias between being lighter skin and then trying to avoid that, right, from an Asian perspective or Latin American perspective. Just curious how you overcome that.
Yeah, honestly, we were very mindful of having a very inclusive cast. They're all pretty. Let's be honest. But different sort of women ethnicities on the in our spot. But also, again, you're seeing only the spot. But there was digital position guides where we featured women of all shapes, ethnicity, etc. in our digital execution, retail execution, etc. So it's something we looked at to be very inclusive and think about that. It's not something that came up then in terms of noise or chatter in the social sort of like listening, conversation around it. So it's not something that we picked up negatively on, but we were very conscious to do it in an inclusive and diverse way.
Yeah, no, I mean it's right, and that was also part of like when we did our casting and our auditioning too, to make sure that we were bringing women on who felt like this was representative of their own behaviors, and that we were finding women that sort of represented a cross section of our culture.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.